Go ahead, take seats. Test, test. All right. All right, how's everybody doing? Yeah. You guys look a little sweaty. Did you walk over here from the headquarters? Yeah. All right, who hadn't done their PFD yet? Come on, put them up, put them up. Rough. Okay. That works? Can you hear me in the back? Do I need to get it closer? How's that? Good? Yes? Okay. Okay. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time. Some people know I did this before. I think early 2012, and it's kind of a state of the command. You know, where we are, what we've done, what we've achieved, and I think it's important that you understand Marine Forces Reserve from whatever, the Marine Corps level, my level, the Commandant's level, so that when you're out doing your job, right, and you talk to people who don't know so much about the reserves, you can explain to them, you know, what's going on, what's important, why the reserves are special to the American people, etc. So, all right, who's got to watch? You got to watch? Yes, sir. Okay, 45 minutes, all right, at 9:45. Okay, you tell me what time it is, and then I'll take questions. So I'm going to run through, I got a buttload of slides here, so I'm probably going to be talking somewhat fast, so pay attention. And then at 45 minutes, I'll cut it off wherever I am, and then, you know, take some questions. There's two parts to the brief. The first part is kind of Marine Forces Reserve writ large. And I've given this brief. Matter of fact, I just got off of BTC with the Commandant. He said to say hi. Seriously, he is the #1 advocate for Marine Forces Reserve. And very, very happy with where the reserves are, how they've integrated with the active component, all the things that they've done the last 10 years. First thing I want to start out, the reserves have done some tremendous things in the last 10 years. Many of you, if not all of you, have been a part of that. Support in Iraq, support in Afghanistan, Djibouti, other places. And Marine Forces Reserve has taken its share of casualties. I think at last count we're at like 143 hostile deaths. And I think it's like 161, including non-hostile deaths, over the last 10 years, based on OAF and OEF. And if you haven't been up on the second deck to our Hall of Heroes, you probably owe it to yourself and to our fallen heroes to walk through there every now and then, and just remember the folks that have given the ultimate sacrifice. Okay, first slide. Okay, this is the Commandant's priorities, right? And of course, everybody tailors their priorities to support the Commandant's priorities. So the first one is still OEF, what we're doing in Afghanistan, which is still very important. So that's his #1 priority. That's where the fight still is. That's where he wants the Marine Corps' focus, and that's where it is for us. Currently, we probably have the fewest number of people in Afghanistan that we've had in the last decade as far as Marine Forces Reserve is concerned. But that's gonna start climbing here the next couple months, and then on into next year as we provide security forces over there and other folks. Rebalance the force. Okay, this has to do with bringing folks back in. It has to do with getting our equipment back up online, getting our readiness back up to what we're supposed to be doing, getting back into training. We have Marines headed out to the ITX out at 29 Palms. Anybody going out to the ITX? Okay, we got some Marines here. They're getting ready to go out. This is kind of shades of the CATs. You know, getting back to, you know, how we used to fight. Big desert tanks, armor mech, combined arms, bringing in air, dropping bombs, stuff we haven't done since the initial invasion of Iraq. So all the Marine Corps is going to be rotating through 29 Palms, different units, going through this integrated training exercise, ITX. So the Mar4 Res is getting ready to kick one off here the next couple days, next week, and this will be the first one that the reserves have done. Education and training. He's focused on education and training. He's trying to expand the schoolhouses, and he wants to focus on distributed ops and complex ops. And I'll show you a map here in a couple slides that shows where all the reserve units are around the country. And you'll see, just by looking at that map, that daily we do distributed ops. And just by virtue of the fact of where we are, what we're doing, it is complex ops. Now, that's not necessarily what the Commandant's talking about, but we do it daily. Complex and distributed ops. And then the last thing is keep the faith. And that is, you know, making sure everybody gets paid, gets promoted on time, taking care of the families, making sure your health issues are taken care of, those folks with PTSD, TBI, any other type of challenges that they've got from combat or other, that we just take care, because we say our people are our most important asset. So it's walking the talk, and that's keeping the faith with everybody. That's our Marines, our sailors, our civilian Marines, everybody who works within Mar4 Res or who works in the United States Marine Corps writ large. Okay, next slide. Okay, here's what we look like. Okay, so take a look at that slide. That gives you the numbers for Marine Forces Reserve right now. You got your drill and reserve, SMCR, your AR, your IMAs, your IRR. All right, and we've got a total of 39,600 by law. And since in the last 10 years the Marine Corps Reserve did not grow, right now, as the active component's coming down, the Commandant's made the decision that Marine Forces Reserve will not lose any bodies. All right, now depending on sequestration, if we crash down below 182.1, that could be a different story. But right now we're holding our own. Marine Forces Reserve is looking pretty darn good with regard to the bodies. Next slide. Okay, how about this map, huh? Does that look like distributed ops? Okay, 183 reserve training centers or home training centers, right, in 48 states, Puerto Rico, and the District of Columbia. All right, of course, we have Marines in every state, and in the territory of Puerto Rico and in the District of Columbia. All right, but that's what we look like spread around the country. Okay, next slide. This is our vision and strategy. The first paragraphs out of the vision and strategy 2025, the Commandant's document, okay, talks about us employing as a total force. As a total force. We're different than the other services. We're different than the Army Reserve, the Army Guard, the Air Force Reserve, the Air Guard, the Navy Reserve, the Coast Guard Reserve, right? Because we have a much closer relationship with the active component, much closer. And we're mirror image, right? We have a division, a wing, a MLG, and a force headquarters group, all right? So we look like a MEF, right? Though we're called Mar4, we're like the fourth MEF of the Marine Corps. And I've told the Commandant, the Assistant Commandant, and the other 3 stars that. And they should consider us a MEF. Now, we don't go to fight that way, right? We don't go fight 1 MEF, 2 MEF, 4th MEF, right? We go and support and integrate with the active component. But we're mirror image, and we get the same training and same equipment, so we just slide right in there wherever we need to, right? Wherever they need us. That's what we do. Then the bottom is my vision statement, right? We want to be the force of choice, which augments, sustains, and reinforces the active component. And that's exactly what we do, right? We want to be proactively aligned and seamlessly integrated. We are the shock absorber for the active component, or the insurance policy for the active component. Next slide. Okay, has anybody ever heard that whenever amphibs go to sea, they should have Marines, they should always have Marines on them, right? Heard that? Kind of same thing with the reserves, right? The active component should never plan, train, exercise, fight without their reserve counterparts with them, right? This is a slide I've used with the leadership of the Marine Corps, trying to educate them as to how this all should work. Next slide. Okay, this is the shock absorber slide. I love this slide. It's kind of grown, it's changed, morphed over time. All right, so let's start with the bottom. You got the 0 line down there at the bottom. Okay, everything below that is the regular drills. Okay, so that's your 48 drills and your 1 AT a year. Okay, anything above that is additional activity. All right, so you see back there, 94 through 2000, that's all it was. This was a Cold War reserve. Right, this was your daddy's reserve. This is a weekend warrior reserve. 48 drills, 1 AT. That's it. All right? And then what happens? We get into 2002, 2003. We're looking at the invasion of Iraq, and we spike to what? Over 21,000 activations. Right? Now, did we need that many for the invasion of Iraq? I don't know. Right? But at the time, someone thought we did. Right? Some of them, not every one of those was in Iraq. A lot of them were. I was in Iraq then, and I had reserve units that were attached to me. We went across the line together. Okay, so then after that, you got that spike I call a strategic spike. Right? In 1950, in the early 50s, when we were in Korea, 45% of the Marines that were in Korea were reserves. 45%. All right? So, but that's that strategic spike. And we want to be prepared to do that. That's part of our job. So if the commandant calls, president calls, right, we want to be able to hit a spike like that or even a bigger spike in the future. Right? So that I call a strategic spike. But then you get the undulation there as we go through the rest of the decade. And that I call the shock absorber, right? So you can kind of see. When the Marine Corps needed more capacity, we provided that. When they needed less, you can kind of see the surges in there, right? Remember the 2007 surge in Iraq? You can kind of see that in there, right? And then it starts coming down. We start having less OCO dollars, right? And then we don't know what the future is going to provide. So we'll just have to see. Though we have gotten money in the baseline now, right, in 2017, 2018, and hopefully out, that'll be able to provide the requisite monies at ADOS so that we can keep our activity level above that 48 drills and 1 AT in the future. So anyhow, I like this slide. This is the shock absorber slide. And then you can see we average about 7,600 activations a year across that last decade, which is pretty darn good. So this is the most active that the reserves have probably been in the history of the reserves this last decade. All right, next slide. I'm not going to go through this block by block, but when we talk about kind of an operational reserve, kind of having a predictive pattern for training and exercising, this is it. The 3-shot. The operations guys came up with this. So you got year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right? So we take all the units and we break them down. Year 1, you just do HTC or Reserve Training Center training. So that's your drills, whatever. You stay home that summer. It's assumed your readiness is relatively low. Right? And then over year 2, 3, 4, you start ramping up. Year 4, you're in the batter's box. And year 5, could be a mobilization and a deployment. Could be a 6-month, could be a year, something like that. Going to Okinawa, whatever, going to Special Purpose MAGTF Africa, whatever's going to be going on in the future. Right? So we built this construct so that the commanders and the commands have something to focus on, right? And then they can kind of work through this. There's another chart that actually has units in it. Okay? Here you see as you go down the side, you got division up at the top, MLG, MAW, and force headquarters as you're going across. Okay, so then they'd figure out, and each unit's readiness is a little bit different based on who there are, how they train. The wing is actually about 53% active component Marines. So they've got a little bit more flexibility, right? Their readiness remains a little bit higher just on a regular basis based on what they have to do with the aircraft. So this is a construct that that our operations section came up with that we're working through for the future. We're going to use that. It gives predictivity to all the units and the commanders for the training. Next slide. Okay. What we're trying to show here is individual augments. And you have the units down the left-hand side. The next column, you got total number of individual augments. The next column is the reserve IAs, and then the last column shows the percentages. Okay, so what strikes you about those percentages? Okay, a large number, right, or a significant number, in many of those is a reserve percentage. And if you look at the totals, 57% are reserve IAs. So again, that shock absorber is there all the time. We have folks supporting. And then you look at certain units like, what is that? MAR4 Syscom, 100% RC filled. Okay, and then you got a couple there that are 100%. What's the other one? That MAR4 AF? No, that's 60%. Well, the MAR4 System. Oh, the Wounded Warrior Regiment. Yeah, Wounded Warrior Regiment wouldn't exist without the reserves. Right? So it's reserves supporting all those Wounded Warriors. Anyhow, pretty good slide. The General Kelly, my predecessor, when he was up at headquarters Marine Corps, you know, people would say, well, I really don't have that many reserves working for me that I know of. And then General Kelly went to found out that particular individual had quite a few reserves working for him. He threatened and said one day up at headquarters Marine Corps, he's going to have all the reserves wear red T-shirts. Right? And then everybody would be able to see who the reserves were for that day. But I mean, it's a good thing. You really can't tell who the reserves are. We don't wear patches like the National Guard. You can't tell. Right? The reserves walk in. They integrate right away with the active component, and we all knock it out of the ballpark. Next slide. These slides I'm showing for the kind of overall effect. It shows you where the reserves are around the world. And this is for support to combatant commanders. All right, for exercises or for like Special Purpose MAGTF Africa, Black Sea Rotation Force in Europe, those kind of things. So I'm just showing you where all the squares are. I'm not going to go through all those, but it shows you that's calendar year 12. So that was last year. And then down at the bottom, you got 4,767 reserves that are supporting that combatant commander support. Next slide. Okay, and then that's 13. So less Marines out there supporting, but still you can see where we are around the world. Next slide. Okay, and this is service level support, so support to ourselves as well as exercises. And again, I mean, geez, look at where everybody is. All around the world. All the COCOMs. Okay, we got folks down there in South Africa, got folks in Morocco, all over the place. Next slide. And then this is calendar year 13. Again, out there. Reserves are out there, all around. Next slide. And these are the innovative readiness training. So these are kind of cool. In West Virginia, we've done some support through a Boy Scout camp. And this summer, I don't know when it's going on, they're having a, what is it, Art? Jamboree?
National Jamboree.
Okay, National Jamboree. And the Marines from 4th MLG did a whole bunch of construction to support and get ready for the National Jamboree. Up in Alaska, one of our Marine Wing support squadrons is extending a runway on, I think it's Kodiak Island. Great training, and somebody else pays for it. So anyhow, we have these things going on just so that you know. Next slide. All right, and then our various community relations events, which are going on all the time. Just like we had the kickoff of the War of 1812 here with New Orleans. Last year we did Marine Week Cleveland. We were going to do Marine Week Seattle this year, but with sequestration, the money and what we're allowed to spend on kind of got dried up. So these are various things that that are supported. A lot of reserve support. Of course, the band is supporting all kinds of events all around, and they were chasing different War of 1812 events all around the East Coast and up around the Great Lakes, right? And so good stuff going on, and the reserves are supporting. Next slide. Okay, look at this. Look at these stats. Absorb these a little bit. 460 color guards. This is in 2012. 1,667 funerals. That's like 44, 45 funerals a day. All right, so the reserves are out there doing that number of funerals every day, somewhere around the country. 74 static displays did Marine Week Cleveland, and support for Toys for Tots over the Christmas season. Next slide. Okay, now I'm going to get into various achievements, and I'm going to run through these quickly. Not trying to, well, I am trying to impress you with what Marine Forces Reserve has done. This isn't me. This is the team, and I'm going to run through the various staff sections, bring things to your attention, and then it'll be the regular staff sections, the special staff sections, and then we'll call it a day. But I just wanted to expose you to all the great things that are going on in Marine Forces Reserve, and the Commandant's just very, very happy with where his reserves are. I know General Odierno, who's the Chief of Staff of the Army, you see him in the news every now and then, in one of the tanks up there at the Pentagon, he looked at the Commandant and he says, you have it so good. You got this total force reserve thing going on, and you don't have a National Guard. So the Commandant just smiles at him because he knows that the relationship he's got with his reserves is really, really good. Okay, so the G1, all right, there you got the professional funeral honors, right, with that number of funerals to over 30,000 military veterans. Right, and then the next one's our recruiting is great. The affiliation, we're working as direct affiliation now. So as the active component is drawn down, right? Marines can get associated with a reserve unit before they even get out, right? So they don't lose any time, and it also gives them another 6 months of tri-care once they get into the reserves. Personnel readiness is over the top, especially as we're doing this FIS rig thing, which I think folks here aren't too affected by it other than the shared services staff. But we have these PTTs, or these personnel transition teams that go out to the units, help make sure we get the right folks in the right BICs, get everything aligned, and that's made an absolute big difference as we're going through FIS rig, getting the right people in the right spots, and again, back to keeping the faith with Marines. Next slide. Okay, the G2, the active component's getting into this kind of regional thing. So study on different regions, take up languages, right? They're doing this with the lieutenants coming out of basic school, right? And other Marines can get involved. So started this regional cultural language familiarization program. Take language online, right? So people get more culturally attuned. And then when we get into Iraq, Afghanistan, situations like this in the future, right? Kind of number one, have some of the fundamentals for understanding culture, and then perhaps have kind of a language that'll be able to support. The G3, we already talked about the 5-year training and readiness model, plus the G3, and this week they're up in Norfolk at the Force Synchronization Conference, where all the different MAR4s, all the MEFs come around a table, and this is where the requirements, what the joint staff requirements are, the combatant command requirements are, throw them on the table, and then people, buy, sell, looking to pick up those requirements, support those exercises. So our guys are up there elbowing their way at the table to make sure that we keep the reserves actively involved and employed in what's going on around the world. Back to those slides that showed all the boxes around the world. And then the force integration, continuing to work our habitual relationships with the active component. And again, back to the reserves or the active component shouldn't plan, train, exercise, or fight without their reserve component with them. Next slide. The Global Combat Support System, this is where, very, very generally, where in the logistics field, there was all these different programs, all these different apps, all these different computer systems that were doing different things. And over time, they've tried to ramp it into one big system. And so there were certain things that we had to do to bring this up. So it's moving along. It's not there yet, but it's a major muscle movement for the G4 and for the command. And then the conversion of a critical asset rapid distribution facility to a more general account, kind of more detailed stuff, but we're looking at accountability, doing accountability of equipment better. Kind of lost a little bit of that over the last 10 years, so we're doing that better. Blount Island, it's where the MTF ships come in, offload. So we're trying to get, so that's a single point of embarkation for the Marines for doing certain MPF operations like African Lion, and then having the ability to do maintenance down there. So that's some big milestones and big objectives that we're looking to accomplish. Next slide. The Cyber Command inspection. I think folks know about that. We did a good job on that. Kind of hit it out of the ballpark. So the folks did a super job there. I don't know if you know it. I guess I don't know if I know it, but I think we've transitioned off of NMCI now to next gen on SIPR. I think that occurred the 1st of June. So I don't know if we're sitting right now as a foot in each canoe or if we transferred over completely, but that's the goal. And that is big. And then the implementation of SIPRNet with the public key infrastructure, your token card, kind of like your CAC card for those that work on SIPR. Next slide. The Inspector General has done a bunch of stuff. Obviously, we've got them focused on any kind of waste, fraud, and abuse, and that's been highlighted. And then we have the culture of responsible choices, which primarily I have the IG managing that, though there's a lot of people that are involved in working the culture of responsible choices, advising me, and getting the word out to you to make the best decisions that you can, and not sabotage your success by making bad decisions. Next slide. The G8, they're the ones primarily focused on the fishery, the machinations that need to occur there, and that's very big and one of my top priorities as we align and restructure certain portions of the reserve. 143 of those, 143, maybe 146 of those 183 dots on the map of the United States are affected somehow by the fishery. Right, so you can tell how big that is, and that's where those personnel transition teams come in. I think folks know that in the headquarters building, and we're probably the only staff that can do this because we're all in the same building, we have a shared services staff. So each of the MSCs on the corners of the building don't have the same size staffs, right, or the same capacity. So we rely on each other and kind of shift the main effort where it needs to be able to support all together. So if like division is doing the ITX, the 3 shop will shift and provide support to division for a period of time. So we do the shared services thing. So you don't have unnecessarily redundant staff. So that was part of the fishery, and we put it in place and actually worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. All right, and then we talked about the baseline funding starting in 2017. But every year, just like the active component, the different parts of the active component, they got to elbow their way into the money system and the POM process as we go through that every year. And we just have to keep competing for the money, just like everybody else does. Right? That's just the way of life. So we know that's going to have to occur, and the G8's the one that does that for us. Next slide. Okay, headquarters, the Marine Corps Support Facility headquarters. We know we've got NOMA, the New Orleans Maritime Military Academy across in H100 there, provided support for them this year, and then the construction that's going on over here outside of the fence line as they renovate and get that school put together so that they can start having their own campus as they develop along. Last year they had just 9th grade. This year they had 9th and 10th. Next year 11th. Next year 12th, and then they'll have their full high school going. Go back to the comptroller. Go back one. Yeah. The comptroller, I actually, one of the things I came in and told my folks when I got here was fix pay, travel, and orders, right? Because as I go around talking to reserves, and of course with the reserves drilling, moving around as much as they do, travel and the liquidation of travel is just pure pain. And everybody had multiple stories of the challenges they had. So I just said, okay, let's fix this. So in the past 2 years, discrepancy notices have decreased from 40% of the claims submitted to just 21% of the claims, resulting in 79% of the claims being liquidated on the first submission, up from 60%, okay? So there's nobody that's as pure as a new driven snow in this process. It's everything from the Marine submitting his travel claim, which, you get kind of the procrastination and, yeah, I'll get to it and whatever. So if it never gets submitted, it's not going to get liquidated, but it needs to the first admin clerk that touches it, that gets put into the system, that eventually comes up to our comptroller and our financial guys to go through it, right? And then we've got this process where 2 people will take a look at the claim, make sure that they agree on if there are any discrepancies, right? And then if it needs to be sent back, it can get sent back as well. In the system now, we've put so that we can put individual Marines' personal email address. So if there's a problem with their travel claim, it can go to them at their home, and they know there's a problem. They can call the admin guy at the Reserve Training Center and get it taken care of. Otherwise, the individual Marine wouldn't know until they come back to the next drill, right? So that's a pretty good fix. So of that, resulting in 79% of claims being liquidated on the first submission, that's big, up from 60%. More than 99.5% of the travel claims are being processed for payment at our finance office within 5 days of receipt. And finance office received an inspection score from a CAT inspection teams. In 2010, the inspection score was 75%. In 2011, it was 86%. 2012, 93%. And then last inspected, January 2013, 95.5%. So, what do you think? Some improvements, huh? Okay. So good team effort on that. And it still needs to be managed. Still need to keep our fingers on the pulse of what's going on. How much time do I have? 17 left to 45. Wow. Am I going too fast? You keep it up? Do I need to take you outside and do side star hops? Yes. 3 minutes. Oh, 3 minutes. Okay, so now I'm really going fast. Okay, we did this one. Next slide. Public affairs. Public affairs, one of my lines of operation is educating the active component. And it's it's funny. Now I've got my fellow 3-stars quoting back to me kind of bumper sticker statements I've made about the reserves over time, which is in a public forum with other 3-stars sitting around the table. That, I can't tell you how big a win that is, but you know, it's kind of like I've got them singing our song, which is really great. So that you can see up here, done a bunch of stuff with social media across social media programs. 5th of 335 registered Facebook pages, 4th of 60 registered Twitter sites, 2nd of 35 registered YouTube sites. So doing some really good stuff. And then, you know, we put out our Continental Marine and our communicator, and those are things that I'll send a digital copy to the commandant, the assistant commandant, and my fellow 3-stars, so that they can see what the reserve force is doing. So public affairs is doing some really good stuff. And of course, they're the ones that did the fat heads that you see around the headquarters, right? Everybody likes the fat heads? Okay, excellent. Okay, council. I've got two folks that are civilians, but they're counsel and provide me advice on various things. One was kind of the federal city machinations. Even though we weren't all that involved, we were on the sidelines and needed to know what was going on. So that was important. And then we also support the federal executive board, which is the city board, and have agencies, different agencies and military sitting on it. So provide advice to the leadership. And then the last thing, of course, council. The reason I have them primarily is just to keep me out of jail. Okay, next slide. Safety. We've had a big decrease across the force in mishaps, which is great. People are paying attention. People are wearing their gear. Reduce the number of DUIs, etc. So this is a big win for the force. Next slide. Okay, facilities. Again, our facilities folks have been doing God's work with those 183 sites, keeping things up, ensuring that we meet the standards, and then I've directed a top 10 list, which is actually the bottom 10 list. You know, what are the worst sites, facilities-wise, and what we need to do to focus on them and you know, bring them up with the other sites. Next slide. NCCS doing a bunch of stuff there, taking care of families. A lot of 4 lenses training going on there. You can see almost 4,000 participants. Courses, tuition assistance is back in the news, right? You can get tuition assistance again. And then we got the subsidy for the child care center here on Federal City, so that was big also. As well, we're focused on, this year, 2013, focused on a employment campaign to work for those Marines, those Marine reservists that either don't have a job or only have a partial job, partially unemployed, and MCCS is working that campaign for me. So we want to see some improvements there. We can network across various Marine Corps organizations as well as Marine for Life. We're doing a bunch of stuff with a truck and insurance company that's run by some Marine veterans to be able to get folks into trucking. And it's not just driving trucks, it's logistics, it's admin, it's safety, it's mechanics and things like that. All right, next slide. So okay, we busted the 45. Okay, I'll stop here.